Hello everyone. This is the first video of this year. And as I mentioned in my updates video, I said that we are going to cover a lot of interesting things around document understanding. And here we are with the first video that looks at how we are going to use document understanding with named entity recognition. So, this named entity recognition is another AI model that we have in AI Center used for some other purpose, but we can easily connect document understanding with that. So, it's a very interesting thing, and we'll see how we can do that to address very specific and very challenging scenarios. So, before getting into the details, let's first understand what is NER and the use of it, and then we'll get into how and when we can use NER with document understanding. So, this video is connecting document understanding with NER, extract specific data. We will also have two more parts on this, and maybe even more, depending on how things comes. That address more complicated things, and also I will share some tips and tricks on how to improve the accuracy around. So, enjoy the first video and let's have a look at it. So, as a start, we'll first start with understanding what is NER and how we can create a model. So, I'm now in AI Center. I have several projects over here. The one I have created for NER is this particular project. You can create any project through this option. You just need to give a name and a description if you have one and create the models. So in my case, I already have created it. So I will go into NER project, and you don't need to create any data sets or any data labeling, any of that for NER. So all you need to do is you can go to ML packages, and under out of the box packages in language analysis, you can find the named entity recognition. This is the model that we are going to use. So how does this work and what's the use of this? So basically, for this particular model, the input is a string, any paragraph or any string that has certain information. And as the output, it will give you certain specific values, such as names of people or locations or the amounts converted in text and also in numeric format, or certain organization names such as UiPath, Microsoft, and so on. And it also has the capability to provide many other information. But this model is not trainable. So this thing has been trained by UiPath to extract certain information, and we are going to use that trained model. So as an example, before we get into the details, here you can see a small example of how the output is going to be like. So in here, let's imagine we passed a string, and out of that, it's going to give you a name of a person. So this type defines what it is. If it's PER, it's a person, and you get the confidence. And if it's a city, as shown here, LOC will give you the location. And there are many other tags like that. So we'll see how we use these tags and how all of this comes into action once we use it. But this is the model and this is the output that we are going to uh, use. And the next thing is, what's the actual use of this in document understanding? Because we already have discussed a lot of AI modules around document understanding, such as the document understanding model, and invoice model, purchase order model, and there are many, many models. So why talk about named entity recognition? What's the benefit that it gives you? So this is actually based on some experience that I also got during the last couple of months. So when it comes to documents, as you can imagine, things can be very complicated because we can represent data in many different ways, and it can be represented in different places on the page, and it can be mentioned in unimaginable ways. So we need to find ways to extract the information we need, irrespective of how the data is presented in the document. So the tricky thing is when it comes to uh, such values such as the names of people, locations, and so on, sometimes it can be tricky to use the same models that we have used, such as the invoice model, the purchase order model, and those extraction models to locate this information precisely. I'll tell you why. So let's, for easy understanding, let's have a look at some documents. So in my case, I have actually come up with some documents um, like this. So these are some legal related documents, but it's nothing that I downloaded. I just created some of these documents through this template.net, where you can actually download some sample documents for yourself. You can edit those online in this platform itself, and you can just download. So it's a easy way of doing things. So I just went through this and came up with some documents, and I also edited some of those. So for example, let's have a look at these documents. Okay, so let's say I want to extract the names and addresses and some other stuff out of these documents. So for example, I'll tell you that I need to extract the names. And in here you can see these names are comma separated. So if I'm to use the same data labeling and the usual stuff that we have been talking about all these days, this can be tricky because this is just not one name. I need all of these names. And sometimes in the document, you can have just one name, you can have names separated like this, or else you can also have these names row wise, um, such as, let me find something. This one. There was another document. Um, this one. So in here, the names are based on a row. And also sometimes you will also see certain documents where you have the name and some descriptions happening here, and this name is mentioned after that, and then another description or a table. Things can be a lot more complicated when it comes to documents. So it's not always straightforward. And in those cases, we cannot really say that this is the place that we need to extract the names and things like that. So when it comes to such situations, named entity recognition model can play a key role. So I came across a similar scenario in one of the things that I worked on where I had to extract certain key information like this, such as names and many other things. But due to the nature of the document, it was very difficult to come up with a specific place to extract or specific way of extracting because sometimes it's comma separated, sometimes it's row wise, as you have seen, and sometimes it can be in many other different formats. So that's where we can use named entity recognition to identify those specific things that we are looking at, such as names, addresses, company names, and so on. So this is how it is interesting, and this is how you can use these models in complicated or complex document understanding scenarios. So now since you have a small idea about what this is, let's have a look how we can use this. Okay, going back to our package over here, you can easily create this name entity recognition by clicking on submit, give it a package name and click on submit. This will create the ML package in your ML packages. And then we need to deploy this. So for that, go to ML skills. Since I have already done that, I will just show how to do it. You can click on create new, give it a unique name, select the package and the version, and just click on create. It will give the status deploying over here for a while. So it will take a couple of minutes and then it will be available for you. So you don't need to do any training because it's not retrainable. And you might also wonder, what if I want to extract certain other information which are not supported by this model? So for that, we also have the capability of training custom named entity recognition models. But that's a topic for another video. So in this one, we'll see how we can use this particular model. So once the status is available, then you're all set to go. And now it's time to create it in the UiPath workflow. So in Studio, I have created a small solution and also two sample workflow files for us. But let's see. I'll guide you on what kind of dependencies what we need on for this model to work. So create your first project, a empty process or or a document understanding process as you wish. But I started with this because just wanted to keep things simple. So create a process, and then the first thing is we need to add certain dependencies. So you can right click here and go to manage, or you can click on manage packages here. And then we need to add UiPath document understanding ML activities. And you need to add UiPath OCR activities because now the all the OCR models are integrated into this particular activity. Right? And then you need to get the intelligent OCR. So these are the common activities that we are going to add for any document understanding solution, as we did in our previous series. And then there's something new that we need to add for this particular thing to work because we are using something additional. So for that, we need to use UiPath.ml services activities. This you can find by clicking on all packages and search for UiPath ML services, and it will be available. Just click on, for you it will show as install. Click on install and save. And we need one more. We need UiPath Web API. Because as you saw in the previous screen when I explained about the named entity recognition, it gives us the JSON string as the output. So we need to use Web API to get the output we need out of those modules. So that's why we are using these two packages. So install these two and you're all set to go. Okay, so I'm going to show you two scenarios. One is the most simple output that we can get through document understanding and to connect with this uh, ML package that we just deployed. And the second scenario is more specific, and we'll get to that. So the first scenario is the simplest one. Okay, so in the first scenario, here I'm not going to talk about any of the taxonomy things or classification or data extraction stuff. This is how we can use the document understanding workflow to connect with the package that we created or the skill that we created. So, if you are new to document understanding, before going through this video, I would really recommend to go through the document understanding tutorials in the UiPath Academy as the start, so that you understand the components around document understanding and what each and every step does. And also, it's good. There's another playlist in my YouTube channel around advanced version of document understanding where we talk about many other stuff. Just feel free to go through that as well. Okay, now coming back to the topic. So in here, what I'm trying to do is I have a small document understanding flow because here I have a list of files. I have like 5 files and each file has a different layout as you see. So I'll show you again. This is one file. So the pages can span across multiple pages. And this is another file. The structure is a bit different. And this is another one. So likewise, I have a set of files like this. So these are very simple files that I just created and downloaded through that site. But when it comes to the actual scenario, things can be a lot more varied. Okay? Because we will be working around many different document types. So this is just to show you the use of NER in certain scenarios like this. Okay, so what I want to do with this NER module is I want to extract the names of companies involved in these documents, names of people, and these dates, and also probably these location names if possible. So this is my main target. And also when it comes to amounts, such as this one, I want to extract this amount in words and also the amounts in figures. So these are the things I am looking at to extract using the named entity recognition. So let's see how we can do that through document understanding connecting to named entity recognition. Okay, since now you have the idea, let's go to Studio and yeah. So as the first step, I will explain the flow. So I have some variables defined here. The first one is the document path, which is pointing to my input files folder, which is this one, because this is where the files are going to be. And here I have also created a data table to hold the output given to us by the named entity recognition. So let's have a look. So here I have the file name, the type, the type given to us through the named entity recognition, like whether it's a person, whether it's a location, whether it's amount, what it is, and the actual value that we're extracting, and the confidence. So these are the things I would like to have through this workflow. Okay, so since we have defined that through the build data table and the output is set to NER data, the data table variable that you see over here, then it's time to loop through the files. So in here, the usual thing that comes to our mind is a assign activity that we can use to do the directory.get files and provide the file path. But now there's the easy way. We don't need to define that. So if you go into for each, you have the usual for each and you have the for each file in folder. So this is the activity that I have used here. So in here, the current file and the document path we need to define. So if I just drag it here, you will see the current file is equal to the item in the for each. So this is what we are going to use. The current file always refers to the item in the current iteration. Okay, let me remove this. All right, so in this activity, I'm defining the folder path as document path because that's my variable over here. And the remaining things I kept it as it is. So the list of files, all that will be handled through this loop itself. So we don't need to create any arrays. That's the benefit. And in the do section, so in a usual document understanding workflow, we usually have the taxonomy creation. Then for each file, we do have the digitized document. We have the classification. We do the data extraction. And then we do the data extraction. These are the usual steps. But here, I didn't define the taxonomy yet in this workflow because I wanted to show the simplified version so that you can easily understand how we can connect these two. In the scenario 2, I will show you how to use the taxonomy. So here, for each file, the first step is digitize. So we use the digitized document activity, and for the document path, we use current file dot full name. Full name will actually give you the get the full path of the directory of file. So it will basically give you the full file path. So that is defined. And as the output, we get the document text and the document object model. And we can use the UiPath document OCR, which you can find it over here. This one. And for this one, we need to give two inputs, the API key and the endpoint. Endpoint is this du.uipath.com/OCR. The API key, you can find it in your cloud platform. If you go to admin, under licenses and robots and services, you will see your document understanding key. Just copy it and paste it. Okay, so once you have configured these two, then so here I'm not going to show you the classification and the usual data extraction because I want to show how document understanding can easily link up with other models we have in AI Center. So for this particular thing, the named entity recognition, I'm going to use an activity called ML skill, which is over here, ML skill. So before configuring this, it will usually look like this. Okay. So we have two connection options, robot and the endpoint. Endpoint is if your model is public, so in AI Center, it will give you an endpoint to connect with it. That is, in other words, if you go to where is my AI Center? It's here. And if you go into NER, ML skills, and if you click inside this, modify current deployment, here you have option to set this to public. So once you set it to public and confirm, it will take some time to update. And then it will have a endpoint shown here. Right now it's not shown because I haven't set it as public. But if you think you should do it, you can try it out. And in this same screen, you will see the endpoint. Just copy it and set this to endpoint and provide the endpoint key here. And you can use the API key uh, as before. Okay, so since we are using robot, set it to robot. That is, it will connect through your robot and direct it to AI centers where it can find the models. And then just click on this refresh button and your skill will be available here. Just select that and that's it. That's all you need to do to point to the model. Then it's all about configuring the input and the output. So let me remove this so that I can show you how to do that with the activity I have. Okay, so I said that the named entity recognition accepts string as the input. So where do we get the string from the document? Is through the digitized document. So this gives you two outputs, document text and the document object model. So this document text has the entire string of the entire document of all the pages in one big string. So this string or this variable we can use to feed it into the NER. So I'm going to use that variable in here under doc text and the output is going to be a JSON response, which is also a string. So, so this will be a string, and for us to extract the data out of that string, we need to deserialize. So what is the meaning of deserializing? Is first you get a string. So that string will look something like this. If you look at an example. So for us to make things easier to locate these values without doing any string manipulation, we can deserialize that so we can access it as we usually do with collection variables such as data tables, lists, and so on. We just give the name and access it, right? And that's what we try to do with deserializing. So let's see. So when it comes to that part, so this deserialized JSON array comes with the activity pack web API. So that's why we added it. So in here, if we use the deserialized JSON array, now remember, so there when it comes to deserialize, there are several activities. We have deserialized JSON and we have deserialized JSON array. We have deserialized XML. This is not needed for now, but out of these two, how do you decide whether you want to use deserialized JSON or array? It depends on your output. So, as we know, this scale can give you a lot of values, not just one. If it is just one output that you are getting, you can use deserialized JSON. Or if you are getting a list of values, like for example, again going back, you can see this is one item, and then there's another item like that again. So it's more like a list, but in each item there are also multiple values. So in such case, it's like a list of arrays, for example, in easy to understand words. So that's why we need to use deserialized array. I hope that part is clear. If that is not clear, just feel free to ping me anytime. I'll explain it to you. So we use the deserialized JSON array and feed the output given to us through this, and we get the output as JSON array. So you can easily create this variable just by pressing Control K and provide the variable name so that the type is given to you automatically and you don't need to define and look for these types. So this gives you a JArray type. And now, since we have deserialized that, now it's time to loop through each and every item and access what's there. So then comes the for each. So in this for each, I'll also show you one configuration before getting into the for each I have done. So for this for each, we need to use this deserialized JSON. And we also need to set the type argument. So in this for each, you can see the type argument is set to Newton soft JSON link J object. So how to find that? So I'll show you how to do that. So in here, click on browse and look for J object. And this is the one we need to use. Just select that and click OK. So that's what I did to configure the for each. So since we have the for each, I'll just remove this again. I just wanted to show you how to do that. So in this for each, now we have the item, and remember I said that I need to extract this data into a data table that has this structure: file name, type, data value, and the confidence. So this is how we access the values now. So in this for each, I'm going to use add data row. So in this one, this is a usual activity that we have. The data table is NER data, the output of this data table. And then I'm going to define the array row. So the first column in the table is the file name. So we can get the file name using path dot get file name and within brackets current file full name. As I mentioned before, the full name gives you the full file path, and out of that, it will give you the file name using this function. And then we need to get the type of basically what that value is. So coming back here, the type defines whether it's a person or an amount, what it is, and it's given by this tag type. So that's what we are using here. Item within brackets type to string. And how to get the actual value is using the key or the tag text. Same as before, here you have it, the actual value. And then the confidence is this tag. You do the item, so you do the item text and item confidence. So for this confidence, I don't have the to string because I'm going to capture it in that particular format itself. So let me go back to build data table. So you can see the confidence data type is single. So how to access single? It's system.single. If you're not sure how to find it, you can do system.single here. This one. Okay. So we have that and we capture it like that. So basically for each item that we find in a document, we add all of those into a table. And then once we have all the items for that particular document in the data table, we append it. We append the data into an Excel file. So what happens here is I have an Excel file with a specific structure in the output folder. In scenario 1. So these are the columns that we have. So we have the file name, type, document value, and the confidence. Same things we have in the data table. So uh, since I don't want to override or make it a bit complicated, so I use append range so that it will add all the values right below the heading. All right, so we have the flow now. So let me do just one small change. So I have defined the data table over here outside the loop. But I think for this to work without having repeating data, it's good to have this data table thing inside this because then it will clear out the data table and create it again within the loop for each and every file. Otherwise, I will have to do it manually somewhere down. So this will make it much better. Okay, now since we have the flow created, so let me just recap it again. We are looping through for each file. We are building the data table. We are doing the digitization through document understanding. And the output given to us by digitized document in the document understanding workflow, we are passing that into ML skill, which is our new activity. And we do the deserialized JSON array because we get a list of values. And for each item, we get the file path, the type, the actual value, confidence into the data table and we write it into our Excel. Okay, so that's the recap. And let's quickly run this and see how this works. So I have the log activities enabled, so you can see it in the output panel. And let's debug it. So this will basically run for each and every file, try to digitize it, and give us the output that we are looking for. So this is basically how you connect the document understanding workflow to named entity recognition. It's simply by using this activity and giving the output of a digitized document. So let's wait for a couple of seconds for this to complete. Should be almost done. So while this train runs, I will also give you some other tips. So the next scenario will be very much more specific. So that we'll be using taxonomy and also we'll be using the data extraction in document understanding along with ML scale. Okay, before getting into that, we have this thing completed. So let's check the output. So it's the scenario one that I'm looking for. And here it is. So this is how the output is going to look like. Okay, so here we have the file name and here we can see all the names of people in that file. So let's have a look at this file as well. Let me put it to a side and where's Adobe? Um, okay, this one. Hope you see this. Let me, okay. So here we have the first one, the complaint, and here we have this name, John Smith. Uh, this is our organization, which is having the tag org, zip, Sioncorp, which is this one, and the date, this, and also names of people, Jessica, John, John. All those names are there, and lastly, Adam Baker. Yeah, so you can see how it extracts the values, and also there are some city names here like this. This is also captured. Uh, this one is not captured. Yeah. So there are some missing things like that as well. So for these things, there are a few other tweaks that we can do. Um, so I'll get to that part in a separate video. And in the next one, copy of construction template. Let's see where that is. Um, yeah, this one. So in here also we have certain dates, names of people, like this. So you can see basically how easily it gives you the values that you want. So this is irrespective of the layout. It's purely based on the text. So that's the beauty of named entity recognition when you use with document understanding. So it has lot of capabilities like that to extract certain things. Let's also look at things where we have comma separated values that we said it's uh, hard to extract. Let's see. Hmm, yeah, so we have one document over here, and this is, oh, it's the same thing, construction template. Sorry, I didn't see that earlier. So let's see these names. Um, See, you have the names like this. So I'll tell you one more thing. If you do this through data manager to try to train it, it will be very confusing for you whether to have these values as one regular field or just one value and separate it later, or whether to have it as a table in data manager in labeling, because things can be comma separated, things can be line wise, as we saw in the previous video here in the complaint thing. So with named entity recognition, irrespective of all those things, we can extract all the things that we need, like a nice table. And then after you extract the data, it's purely based on the logic. What to get out of this and what are the unwanted things out of this, how to ignore those based on the confidence. It's purely based on logic. Actually, document understanding, if you think about it, it's based on a lot of logic, more than the technology part involved. Once you have the data, it's all about logic. So, so basically, this is how you connect document understanding with this. Okay, so next we have two other things to look at. One is our scenario two, and then along with this, we get the tips and tricks, where I will be telling you how to improve the extraction out of this, because it's not just one sentence that we are giving, it's a document and it's a lot of text, a lot of structures inside it. So there are a lot of things involved. So I'll tell you how to improve the extraction in the named entity recognition when you are using document understanding in a different video, and scenario 2 as well in a different video, because it's going to be lengthy and I don't want to have this video for too long because it will be too boring. Um, okay, so now you have the idea about how to do this. And I also want to tell you one more thing before we wrap up for this video. If you actually look at how things are being extracted, it's going to extract from top left and going down in the document because of the order that you see here. First, you see the first value, and then the organization, then the date, and so on. So you see the pattern. And these are the things that we need to keep in mind when working with these models for us to come up with our logics. More on that in the next video. So I hope this one was helpful and easy to follow. And I hope it's interesting as well. So you can also give a try, just log into that site, try doing some, getting some documents out of there, test it using the flow that I just showed you. So I will also try to add the workflow in the in a shared drive, and I'll provide the link in the description so that you can download. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video real soon. Until then, take care.